killed.
That close.
Is this brain surgery without a knife?
It is.
What risk do these children pose to Russia?
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not. Who's the best coach in college football today?
Let me see a mirror.
It's time for the CBS News original, 60 Minutes. Sundays on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Republicans left me no choice. Today, I'm announcing actions to bar migrants who cross our southern border unlawfully from receiving asylum.
Was there ever a time when you were a judge when you had a family member who was personally profiting off of the notoriety of a case that was before your court?
I'm going to say again, very clear, you're asking me to comment on a case in another jurisdiction.
No.
Witness testimony is underway in Hunter Biden's federal gun trial in Wilmington, Delaware.
Hello, everyone. I'm Weijia Jiang in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. Witness testimony just wrapped up for today in the Hunter Biden trial. We'll go to Wilmington later in the hour, but first, a big move from President Biden on immigration. Today, he signed executive actions that amount to his toughest move so far to control the number of migrants coming across the border. They allow migrants to be deported before their asylum claims are processed and come after Republicans blocked bipartisan immigration reform earlier this year, twice.
We must face the simple truth. To protect America as a land that welcomes immigrants, we must first secure the border and secure it now.
Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cortez and immigration reporter Camilo Montoya Galvez joins us now with more. Camilo, it's great to see you. Can you walk us through the details of this executive action and explain how it could impact the number of border crossings?
Hi, Weijia. Yes, starting at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time, there will be a dramatic shift in policy here at the U.S.-Mexico border. That is when President Biden's new executive action on immigration will take effect, rendering most migrants here who cross into the country illegally ineligible for U.S. asylum. It will also allow U.S. immigration officials to quickly deport those migrants who cross unlawfully back to Mexico across the Rio Grande in Texas or the desert in New Mexico, California, and Arizona, quickly without processing their asylum claims or to their home countries, whether it's Venezuela, China, Honduras, other countries throughout the world where migrants are coming from. And so this would be a dramatic shift in policy. Importantly, asylum processing will continue at official legal ports of entry, where the Biden administration, Weijia, is currently processing roughly 1,500 migrants per day. And this emergency authority will not be lifted, we understand, Weijia, until the weekly average of daily illegal border crossings falls below 1,500, something that has not happened in years. So we should expect this order to be in place for the time being, unless it is blocked in federal court.
And Camilo, you've been reporting on this now for several months, that this option was always on the table. Officials were working out various details. So why is the White House pulling the trigger on this executive order now?
That is the million-dollar question, Weijia. The administration would argue that they are taking unilateral action in the absence of congressional action on immigration. As you know, Congress has been desperately gridlocked on the issue of border and immigration policy for decades. The last significant reform to the system was in the 1990s, and recently a bipartisan compromise that would have enacted a similar asylum restriction collapsed in Congress twice because it lacked sufficient Republican support. So they are now trying to go on the political offensive. The administration is arguing that they are taking political and policy action on this issue, while Republicans are in many ways obstructing any progress and compromise. Also, we have to underscore that the administration knows and the president knows, Weijia, that this is a very tricky political issue for him heading into his re-election campaign. As you know, immigration is one of his worst polling issues.
And Camilo, he certainly made some of those points today when we heard from President Biden. Nancy, the president was clearly trying to do a delicate dance, appearing to be tough on the border, but also acknowledging concerns from members of his own party that he is reverting to the same actions that former President Trump used, which, of course, he once criticized. What did you make of his remarks today?
Well, we heard him say in various ways, Weija, that he is only doing this because Congress has failed to act. He came right out of the gate swinging at Republicans, saying that they have left him no choice, arguing that he had hoped that this would be handled by a bipartisan immigration deal that had been struck by Democrats and Republicans in the Senate with the help of the White House that failed, in part because former President Trump urged Republicans to walk away from it. He argued that he could get a better deal once he's back in office if he wins re-election. And so President Biden said, look, he didn't want to take executive action. It's very clear, as Camilla pointed out, that this is likely to be challenged in the courts. The ACLU is already vowing to sue. Executive action is inherently more risky legally than congressional action. But the president said his hands were tied. He waited to see if they'd do anything on Capitol Hill, and clearly the answer is no.
And Nancy, you're right. I remember covering this with you. And at certain points, it seemed like maybe senators were actually going to get somewhere until, of course, Trump started putting pressure on them. And that is something that Biden talked about today. I want to play some of what he said and talk more on the other side.
We came to a clear bipartisan deal. It was the strongest border security agreement in decades. But then Republicans in Congress, not all, but walked away from it. Why? Because Donald Trump told them to. He told the Republicans, it has been published widely by many of you, that he didn't want to fix the issue. He wanted to use it to attack me. I would have preferred to address this issue through bipartisan legislation, because that's the only way to actually get the kind of system we have now that's broken, fixed, to hire more Border Patrol agents, more asylum officers, more judges. But Republicans have left me no choice.
Nancy, how often do you think we're going to hear that messaging from President Biden in the campaign, reminding voters that it was Republicans who blocked the bill?
Right. They're going to need to make that case over and over again, because as we've seen in polling for months, if not years, voters put immigration at not at the top, but close to the top of their list of priorities. And they consistently give Donald Trump higher marks on immigration than they do President Trump. I think it's no accident that this is taking place just a few weeks before the first presidential debate, which is coming later in June. President Biden wants to be able to hit back at former President Trump when Trump inevitably goes on the offense on immigration, even though, as Camillo can describe better than anyone, we are down from those record border crossings that we saw back in the winter, back in November and December, for a variety of reasons. And yet immigration and illegal border crossings still are historically high.
Nancy Cordes and Camila Montoyo Galvez, we are so grateful for both of your reporting. Thank you. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met this morning with the families of several American hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. This is his 9th meeting with the families since the October 7th attack. There are 8 U.S. hostages still in Gaza, and the president has said that he believes they are still alive. Today's meeting comes as Israel's military confirmed the deaths of 4 more hostages held by Hamas, including 3 men in their 80s who were seen in a Hamas video begging to be released. As the president's new executive actions on immigration get set to go into effect, we get reaction from Congressional Hispanic Caucus Chair Nanette Diaz-Barrigan next on America Decides.
Coming up, our series. Wait a minute. Tom, is that you working the camera?
Keep leaning out of your close-up.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I had progressively fallen deeper into the world of online sports betting.
The risk is the rush.
What do you think is driving the spike in popularity?
I think it's legality.
If it's legal, I'm going to use it. There are ways to bet when you are 18.
We've created an epidemic of child gambling.
You can't walk into a male dormitory in a college campus without sports betting happening.
It's America's most neglected problem.
I used sports betting as a way to escape, when in reality, I'm choosing self-destruction. Whatever I had left, it was gone.
The purpose of the industry is to get you to play to extinction. And that means until all your money is gone.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
That's pretty good. Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
That desired farm is a wonderful place to raise children, and it still is.
Promises broken.
Black Americans have been the target of racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
People with developmental disabilities were once sequestered by the hundreds of thousands in institutions.
Many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower.
Disability activists have since torn down barriers blocking them from living at home or in the community.
We conclude that Title II of the ADA requires states to provide community-based treatment for persons with mental disabilities.
But of the 16,000 people who remain in state-operated institutions, half are in 5 states, and Illinois is one of them.
I don't want to live in the institution. It makes me feel discriminated against.
Do you think there are people living in institutions in Illinois that don't need to be living there?
Yeah, because they're proving it as soon as they get out.
The Republicans are more concerned about keeping this as a campaign issue than they are about governing and solutions. The bottom line is House Democrats believe we can and should secure our border while opening up more legal pathways.
That was House Democratic Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar responding to President Biden's executive actions impacting asylum seekers. The administration's move comes after the Senate failed twice to pass a revived border deal last month. California Democratic Congresswoman Nanette Diaz-Barragan joins us now. She is the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. And thank you so much, Chairwoman, for making time to talk with us today. I wonder if you and the caucus had any heads up that President Biden was going to make this announcement today.
Yes, there were several members of the Hispanic Caucus leadership that were briefed in advance of today, just a couple days ago.
In an interview earlier this month, you said that you had a great fear that innocent people would be turned away because of these executive actions. And now that you've had a chance to sift through the details, I wonder, are you still worried?
I am very worried. I'm very concerned, and I'm disappointed that this is a direction that the president has gone in. What effectively it is we're talking about turning people away at the southern border so that they don't have a right to apply for asylum when they hit certain numbers. It's 2,500. If you take a look at when the last time the number was below 2,500, it's been a very long time. And if you implemented this at the beginning of the Biden presidency, you would have had a border effectively shut down for the purposes of asylum almost all but a month or two. And this is America. In the U.S., we have a legal right to apply for asylum. Look, we all agree that the border and the immigration system is broken and that we need to make reforms. But Republicans don't want to do that. And they don't want to invest any money. They don't want to work on policy together. And so, we've heard from the president that he felt he had to take executive action. The Hispanic Caucus believes that there are better ways to do this, and that there should also be positives that are paired, because the American people want positives. They want to make sure things like protections for immigrants that have been here for a long time.
And speaking of that, I know that you have pushed the Biden administration to do more when it comes to providing pathways to lawful status for long-settled immigrants. What is it that you want the administration to do now?
Well, as quickly as possible, we would like the president to provide protections for undocumented folks who've been here for a long time. One of those things is parole in place for the spouses of U.S. citizens, making sure that we're keeping families together. These are people who've been here for a long time that we know. They're our neighbors, our friends. They're married to American citizens, and yet they're at risk of being deported. They have a hard time to get a visa, to get a work authorization. So we need to make sure we protect the spouses of U.S. citizens. We would like the president to provide that protection as quickly as possible, immediately. The other thing that could be done in keeping in line with keeping families together is to be able to do more of cancellation of removal. We have many immigrants who provide caregiving to family members, and so there are opportunities to do that as well. Other legal pathways, like open up more slots for CBP. We know that that provides a more orderly process for people coming here to America instead of having to go between the ports of entry. And let's remember why people are coming between the ports of entry, because they don't have a system and a process where they can go to a port of entry unless they get one of these appointments through the CBP One app, which, as we know, are very limited.
And that does remind me of what your colleague, Senator Alex Padilla, tweeted. He is, of course, a member of the caucus, and he said, by reviving Trump's asylum ban, President Biden has undermined American values and abandoned our nation's obligations to provide people fleeing persecution, violence, and authoritarianism with an opportunity to seek refuge in the U.S. Do you agree with this tweet?
I do agree. This was 212 authority was used under Trump, and it was used for the asylum ban, and it was a tool in his toolbox to do everything he could to stop people from coming to this country. And that's why I think this is a step in the wrong direction, and why we really need the president to act on making sure that he is helping provide protections for people who've been here a long time. Enforcement only doesn't work. We know that. And we know that immigration policy can be good policy and good politics, and providing these protections would do that.
President Biden has said he, was under a lot of pressure to do something to control the situation at the border. How do you think this move, his decision here, could impact his support among Latino voters?
Well, there's lots of things that we could try to do, including making sure that there's more resources and moving folks around and surging to provide an opportunity to get personnel down there at the southern border. The idea here is we want to make it more orderly to process people and get the manpower down there. How is it going to do? We don't know yet. This is why I think it's important for the president to act as soon as you can and immediately to let Latinos across the country know that he's working to help provide protections. Again, it's pairing the positives. It's giving those who've been here for a long time something. They've been promised for a very long time comprehensive immigration reform, and the Congress has failed to do that. And we have to do that. That is on us. But the president can help provide these protections to make sure we're keeping these families together. And I think that is going to help. And I think that the voters and the polling tells us across the country that they don't want enforcement-only policies. They want to make sure to have orderly process, some enforcement, but they want to make sure that we're also helping provide these pathways and to provide protections to those undocumented immigrants that have been in this country for a very long time, whether it's dreamers, whether it's farm workers, and the spouses, of course, of U.S. citizens.
And we will be following up on all of those things, and I really appreciate your time, Chairwoman Nanette Diaz-Barragán. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will not be intimidated, and the Justice Department will not be intimidated.
Merrick Garland there pushing back on attacks against the Justice Department during testimony before the House Judiciary Committee. We head to Capitol Hill next. You're streaming America Decides.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen, because nothing ever happens in East Palestine, but it did.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars.
Resident, please evacuate.
Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes.
Did you ever have these problems before the derailment?
No, ma'am.
This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing, bronchitis?
That's a hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else. This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
Sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate.
Might make you look before you launch.
If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland testified today before one of the Republican-led House panels that advanced contempt of Congress resolutions against him just last month. Some lawmakers are seeking to hold Garland in contempt for refusing to turn over audio recordings from President Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur. The Justice Department said it could not comply with this subpoena because President Biden asserted executive privilege over the audio, and doing so could negatively impact other probes. Garland vigorously defended his department.
I view contempt as a serious matter, but I will not jeopardize the ability of our prosecutors and agents to do their jobs effectively in future investigations. I will not be intimidated, and the Justice Department will not be intimidated.
Our Nicole Killian joins us now from Capitol Hill. Nicole, when might the House move forward with a contempt vote against the Attorney General?
Well, it remains to be seen. I did talk to Chairman Jim Jordan about that, and he said that it's possible that this could go to a full House vote as soon as next week, and he insists that the votes are there. However, when we asked Speaker Johnson about this, he said that they are still working out some of the timing. But either way, you heard the Attorney General there say that he takes contempt seriously, but at the same time, he does not believe that his agency should be subject to attacks and falsehoods that he believes Republicans are alleging about how the agency is conducting its business, specifically when it comes to some of these investigations involving the former president.
And Nicole, things got pretty heated at times. I wonder what exactly Republican lawmakers were hoping to accomplish today.
Well, again, a lot of the hearing focused on what Republicans argue is the weaponization of the Justice Department. At the same time, this was kind of more of a general oversight hearing. And so from time to time, obviously, the Attorney General is called in for these types of hearings. And so it really ran the gamut in terms of taking a deeper dive into some of these investigations against the former president, to questions about the Hunter Biden trial, to, as you mentioned, the special counsel investigation involving President Biden and his use of classified documents. As you mentioned, of course, the committee has been after these recordings of the special counsel's interview with President Biden. I asked Chairman Jordan about that. Take a listen.
We just want the audio tapes. We want equal treatment under the law. And it's certainly not the case. I mean, there's a reason a majority of Americans, polling shows a majority of Americans think there's a two-tier justice system. They think that because there is.
And so, again, in addition to trying to push for those recordings, even though executive privilege has been exerted over that, he also continued to argue that he wants to see additional documentation from the Department of Justice when it comes to its correspondence and contact, for instance, with some of these local prosecutors, whether that be Alvin Bragg, who just prosecuted the case against the former president, to Fani Willis down in Georgia. And we heard the Attorney General argue time and again that these are local prosecutors, that there has not been any coordination with his department, but nonetheless, Republicans still pushing for more information.
And Nicole, as you mentioned, this wasn't just about hammering Garland for the audio recordings of President Biden, but they also wanted to advance their claims the Justice Department has been weaponized against Trump. Did Garland respond to that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, he pushed back against that, as you mentioned, very vigorously, again, kind of maintaining his independence. He would not, for instance, get into the special counsel investigation. He was asked, for instance, about, his reason and rationale for hiring Jack Smith. He did not want to get into any of the investigations, whether it was that one involving classified documents or January 6th. He again continued to argue that there was no coordination between his department and these local prosecutors, whether that be in New York or Georgia. And, this really, again, kind of devolved into a lot of partisan attacks, which is what we have seen. Many Democrats came to the Attorney General's defense and said that they believe, Republicans are trying to prop up a convicted felon rather than defending the rule of law. And so, Republicans obviously countered that they have some concerns about the way some of these investigations were handled. And so that's why they felt justified in holding today's hearing.
Well, this is certainly not the first time we have heard these sorts of allegations against the Attorney General. Plenty of Democrats accused William Barr of carrying water for Donald Trump. Nicole Killian, thank you so much.
You bet.
Wisconsin's Democratic Attorney General today filed felony forgery charges against 3 Trump allies over their alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Kenneth Chesebro, James Trupis, and Michael Roman are accused of attempting to send slates of fake electors to Congress to keep the former president in power after the 2020 election.
Our approach has been focused on following the facts where they lead and then making decisions based on the facts, the law, and the best interests of justice. This investigation will continue, and we will make decisions, and where appropriate, we'll work with district attorneys to make decisions, again, based on those factors.
Chesebro and Roman were also indicted, along with Trump and several others, in a sweeping election interference case in Georgia back in August. Chesebro and 3 others have since taken plea deals in exchange for agreeing to testify against other defendants.
Come here today to do what the Republicans in Congress refuse to do. Take the necessary steps to secure our border.
The president takes aim at Republicans and Donald Trump as he announces new border measures. Our political panel is standing by to take a deeper dive into the divide over immigration. You are streaming America Decides. .
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
The justices ruled that Harvard and the University of North Carolina violated the Constitution.
In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to end affirmative action in college admissions, uncertainty sets in for some students of color.
Affirmative action really gave us an equal opportunity.
CBS Reports explores the historic decision and what it means for those chasing an opportunity to change their lives.
I knew that college was the ticket to break this cycle.
The end of affirmative action, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Okay, let's go. You guys good?
Hey.
All right, we good?
Keep going. The clock, it's ticking.
Off we go.
60 minutes. 60 minutes.
60 minutes.
It's time for 60 Minutes, Sundays on CBS.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We are about to see American weapons in the hands of Mexican cartels.
A gun pipeline to Mexico.
We are arming the cartels. 100%, no doubt about it.
Happening right under our noses.
Who's doing something about this? Nobody.
A CBS Reports exclusive.
Most Americans have no idea that we are effectively arming the enemy next door.
This is the story the American people need to know.
Arming cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides, taking you inside American democracy.
The most important stories on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis.
You're going to hear a lot of reporting.
It is clearly a pivotal moment.
Gun control, the economy, education.
Both sides of the political aisle fight it out for power.
Bringing you the analysis that you need.
Thoughtfully, with context.
Be part of the conversation.
On CBS News Streaming.
Welcome to America Decides, Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
President Biden's campaign team slammed Donald Trump and his allies while touting the executive actions on the border announced by President Biden today. A spokesperson for his campaign is accusing the former president and MAGA Republicans of choosing, quote, chaos and partisan politics over fixing the immigration system. He also blamed Trump for the recent failure of the, quote, strongest bipartisan border bill in a generation. David Weigel is a politics reporter for Semaphore, and Sabrina Rodriguez is a national politics reporter for The Washington Post. Thank you both for being here today. So, Sabrina, President Biden has expressed frustration for so many months now against Senate Republicans, saying that they are playing politics and they are to blame for blocking this border bill. There's still a big question, though, about why today was the day he chose to announce these executive actions. Do you have any insight?
I mean, that is the million-dollar question. We've seen since day one of the Biden administration, we have seen him dealing with criticism repeatedly from Donald Trump and from Republicans on the issue of immigration. I mean, right now, Dave and I were just talking about that, the border crossings at this time of the year are actually down. So if we're talking about a period where there are tons of border crossings happening, now is not that time. But it's no question, we have the election this year, months away. We've seen that the president has been on defense on this issue in recent months. He's really been trying to drive home the point that he's been limited in what he can do because Republicans in Congress were not willing to get on board with that bipartisan-backed bill that he was supporting. So this is sort of that step of him saying, I'm taking action. It's clear this is aimed towards independent voters who in polling we see, support Donald Trump more and trust him more on issues around immigration and the border. But it is an open question what the effect will be, because we've already seen Republicans coming out and saying it's too little too late. Why did he wait until now to do this?
And David, we're not just talking about the measures today. We're talking about the fact that Biden is blaming Republicans by design because he wants to repeat that message. Do you think it's effective for him to slam Republicans, slam Donald Trump, while he is trying to show everything he is doing to make a difference at the border?
Well, Democrats think they made a little bit of progress. They were trailing badly on immigration. They were trailing badly against Republicans late last year. They've been trailing throughout his presidency. And Republicans are winning in one important way, which they've got the president to move back on a 2020 campaign promise. He and every Democrat running in 2020 said they were going to restore Obama-era asylum policies. They were going to undo what Trump did. You saw in the interview with Time magazine, the president was saying he wouldn't have reversed anything he did in the first week of his presidency. The Republican ask is reverse everything you did in the first week of your presidency. Return to every Trump policy. And Biden's actually meeting them part of the way, saying, I am reversing a thing I ran on, a thing that I told immigration groups, I told progressive Democrats I would do. I'm going to deny some legitimate asylum seekers access to the country. He's going to anger the left. That's already happened in a way that didn't with the immigration bill. He is, I think, making some incremental gains with voters paying close attention. But I don't know if that balance is going to work for him.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, according to one of our CBS News polls, voters in both Arizona and Florida said that recent immigrants have made life in their state worse.
Right.
Are these executive actions going to make any difference to change those minds, or is it too little, too late?
Well, one thing they're reacting to is stories that Republicans talk about, the way they wouldn't have 10 years ago, of crime committed by people in the country illegally. They have the Lake and Riley example, but there's examples of this every time it bubbles up from local news. Republicans talk about that. They talk about pressure on social services, all those things. I don't think that is ended by this executive order.
No, and I mean, that's the reality, is something, this has been years coming. This has been, Republican governors sending migrants to large major cities. I mean, the question around social services, the question around what is going on in cities, whether it's been misplaced blame of, rises in crime because of this. I mean, this is something Republicans have talked about incessantly over the past 4 years. So it's not like one executive action that the president does today is suddenly going to reverse years of this rhetoric that people have been listening to.
Well, of course, the former president is weighing in. I want to play a little bit of what Trump has to say about today's executive actions and get back to you on the other side.
Crooked Joe Biden is pretending to finally do something about the border, but in fact, it's all about show because he knows we have a debate coming up in 3 weeks. The truth is that Joe Biden's executive order won't stop the invasion. It's weak and it's pathetic. It will actually make the invasion worse. Millions of people a year will continue to pour across our border and be released into our country.
I feel like I just watched a tease for the debate that's going to happen in 3.5 weeks. I mean, how much of the timing of today has to do with the fact that they are meeting face to face?
It's no question that this is a part of the calculus. Again, we have the election 5 months from now. We're going to see them meeting Republicans. It's not just Donald Trump. I mean, down the ballot, Senate candidates, House candidates, the ads that we see being run by Republicans largely focus on this perception of an invasion, of chaos at the border. So it's clear that Biden is trying to disarm him, trying to say, look, I am stepping up and doing something. But we're still going to see that rhetoric from Trump. I mean, there's no question between now and November, Trump will still be talking about the border and this perception of chaos that he feels that Biden hasn't handled.
Yes, this is, again, just not a good issue for Joe Biden because of the way the country's mood has changed. You cited that polling. This is something I see across the country. Voters who changed their minds after 2000 because of what they saw as the impact of asylum seekers on their communities, on public services. You've seen this in New York especially. I think there's been most media attention in New York. Chicago too, communities that voted for Joe Biden that are angry and in many places misplacing blame on some service cuts on migrants who are being serviced, or saying they don't want a center processing migrants to be put in their community. That, again, that would not, there's nothing Biden could do right now to reverse that. He couldn't do it politically inside his party. And so but I don't know what they can do to dismantle that issue for Trump ahead of the debate.
Well, there's a lot of anger and a lot of blame going around today, and I wish we could talk about it more, but we have to leave it there. Sabrina Rodriguez and David Weigel, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
But today was the first day of witness testimony in Hunter Biden's federal gun trial. After opening statements, the jury heard from FBI Special Agent Erica Jensen. She was assigned to the investigation in the fall of 2023. The president's son faces 3 felony charges stemming from his alleged illegal purchase of a firearm in 2018 while a drug user. He faces up to 25 years in prison if convicted. Our Scott McFarland is following the case from Wilmington, Delaware. Scott, great to see you. What were the major arguments today made by the prosecution and the defense during their opening statements?
The prosecutors used Hunter Biden's own words in the courtroom today. Hunter Biden was sitting at the defense table and didn't speak, but they played all of this audio from his audiobook of his memoirs from 2021, in which he recounted his descent into drug addiction during the period in question, October 2018. According to the prosecutors, Hunter Biden knowingly made a false statement when he bought that gun, not acknowledging his drug use or his drug addiction, and they allege he unlawfully possessed the gun despite the drug use and the drug addiction. And they played all these excerpts from his memoirs in which he details the trauma, the embarrassment, the sequence of events that he went through while addicted in 2018. The defense for Hunter Biden made their opening statement and gave us a sense where they're headed in this trial. They're making this argument that Hunter Biden may not have knowingly made false statements, that because he was an addict in the throes of addiction, he had a state of denial surrounding him. They're also making the argument that it's not clear when you sign that form whether you have to be on drugs or addicted at that very moment versus in a period of time before you sign that form. Both sides forecasting where they're going with this. An FBI agent testified today, but as early as tomorrow, it could move on to Hunter Biden's ex-wife on the stand.
Well, what did we hear from that FBI agent today, Erica Jensen?
She was walking us through the memoirs, chapter by chapter, playing extended takes of what Hunter Biden was saying about himself. And it works in conjunction with the prosecution's argument that he knew he was addicted in 2018 when the gun was purchased. We watched around the room. We could see the Biden family, including the First Lady, right behind Hunter. And there were some emotional moments where Biden's sister appeared to be struck by what was being said by her own brother. This was the lion's share of the afternoon. This will move to 3 different women testifying later this week, not just Hunter Biden's ex-wife, but a woman with whom he was romantically linked in California in 2018. And then Hallie Biden, Beau Biden's widow, who prosecutors explained to the jury today, found that gun and discarded that gun 11 days after it was purchased. She's been granted immunity to testify also about her drug use with Hunter Biden.
And Scott, as you were inside listening to all this testimony, I imagine you were also looking around the room. Can you describe the mood? Can you describe Hunter's demeanor along with those of his family?
At this moment, it's the prosecution having their day, their moment in the sun, explaining what they want to explain. Most of this day was a direct examination of the FBI agent. The defense had just a brief moment at the end of the day to start their cross-examination. That's going to continue into tomorrow. Didn't see much animation out of Hunter Biden so far today, but this would be the more dispassionate of the trial testimony. Things will change later this week when those women testify. In fact, the prosecutors warned the jury there will be embarrassing testimony here. Hunter Biden not only faces the prospect of prison time if convicted, but he faces the certain prospect of the depths of his despair being thrown out there for the world to see.
And you will be covering it all. Thank you so much, Scott McFarland. Big donations, anonymous donors, and murky origins. Next, a CBS News investigation is shedding light on dark money in the Biden and Trump political campaigns. You're streaming America Decides.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more. Experience thought-provoking,
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Haitians are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's gonna be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm gonna remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was gonna be born, he was only gonna live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift, stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces. I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Well, it's no secret that a wave of anonymous donations are part of what's fueling the presidential race ahead of November. But one mystery still hasn't been solved from the last election. A single anonymous donation of $64 million that was used to help Joe Biden defeat Donald Trump back in 2020. The source of that money remains unknown. CBS News investigative producer Daniel Kleidman joins us now. Daniel, it's great to see you. So what do we know, if anything, about where this money came from and how it was moved around to help Joe Biden?
Well, we know very little about it, and that's part of the problem. So what we do know is that in July of 2020, a 501c4 tax-exempt organization just kind of popped up out of the blue and received this $64 million donation from an anonymous source, which was a staggering amount of money. Most people think that the money came from a very wealthy pro-Biden individual, but it could have come from a company, it could have come from an LLC with a person or several people behind it. Then that $55 million of that $64 million, just a few weeks later, moved to the 501c4 nonprofit wing of the main Biden super PAC called Future Forward. And at that point, Future Forward, as a super PAC, it's allowed to spend the money on electioneering, on supporting an individual candidate, and it does have to disclose who gave it the money. But the last donor was Future Forward, was the 501c4 of Future Forward. So that's all you're learning, that it came from Future Forward USA Action, which no one knows what that is, right? No one knows what if that's a particular individual or what the provenance of that money is, the origin of that money.
And what their interests are.
And what their interests are. That's the point. That's what good government groups and people who really believe that transparency in our campaign finance system is important are concerned about, this trend. Billions of dollars moving into politics. No one knows what the agendas or the interest behind the money really is.
Which is exactly why the president himself has before criticized dark money. He said in 2022, there's much too much money that flows in the shadows to influence our elections. Dark money erodes public trust. But here we are. How do Democrats feel about this huge figure now that we are in election year?
Yeah,
again?
look, I don't doubt Democrats and President Biden that he wishes that we didn't have this system. I think a lot of people do. Their argument is, well, this is the system that exists. The other side is taking full advantage of it, and we're not going to unilaterally disarm. Or, as a Democratic strategist said to me a little more pithily, when you show up at a gunfight, you don't bring a knife.
Well, there is a new dark money group supporting Trump, and they're running an ad in Pennsylvania going after Biden. Can you talk about how important these anonymous donations are to campaigns?
Well, they're very important to both sides right now because there are a lot of people out there, a lot of very wealthy individuals who don't want their names associated with these contributions. And you're right, a group just popped up last week called Securing American Greatness. That is a pro-Trump group that spent about $2 million on ads supporting Donald Trump and attacking Joe Biden for, in their view, ignoring the inflation issue. We have no idea who gave that money, and this is just happening over and over again. And part of there's sometimes legitimate reasons that people don't want their names associated with the contributions they give. Oh, they don't. Some people do it out of humility, but for the most part, I think people are doing it for other reasons. One is that they're concerned about alienating the other side. A lot of people who have a lot of money, they're hedging their bets, and they're concerned that if they give money to one side and then the other side wins, that may be a problem for them.
And sorry if this is a dumb question, but just to be clear, you and I don't know who made this donation. Does Joe Biden and Donald Trump?
Well, that's a good question. They're not supposed to know because their campaigns and their political teams are not supposed to coordinate with super PACs. But my guess is people in their orbit do know. It's hard to keep that kind of secret if it's $64 million, a staggering amount of money.
Well, we will see if there's another mystery for this year. Thank you so much, Daniel Kleidman.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's primary day in 5 states and the District of Columbia. We're tracking the down-ballot races, including how Senator Bob Menendez's corruption trial is looming over the New Jersey vote. You're streaming America Decides.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning.
Well, let me start with this. What is at stake here?
What is the answer then?
Do you know why?
You want me to just keep going?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Were there death threats?
How is this possible?
What's wrong with that argument?
Are you saying they lied?
Have you told the government that? Why won't you say the word crisis?
You're not answering my question.
Is that scary?
Does that make sense?
What do you mean? What does that mean? Did any of that make sense? What's your response?
What happened?
Why?
It's time for the CBS News Original 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
There is no more room in our city.
New York City is receiving record numbers of migrants.
Today, we're going to have more than 500 adults and children come through that door.
Tensions rise as shelters reach max capacity.
We don't have to take care of them.
CBS Reports goes inside a crisis cities and families are facing as they fight to survive.
The United States still has a glimmer of hope for people to come here.
Fighting for a future. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
On Face the Nation, the way to learn is to listen.
We may have a recession.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Since you started La Soup in 2014, do you have any sense as to how much food you've rescued from the landfill?
We've rescued 4.5 million pounds.
I can't even fathom how much food that is.
And that's one little person in one little city in America. We're going to call this chicken piccata. We did 450 of these meals today.
This is the exact dish
that
you and I are going to have.
Yep.
Oh, really good.
Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Having a plan of how to keep people fed should be in every single city.
So if we eliminated food waste, could we eliminate
hunger? Yes.
Eating Trash, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
America Decides, taking you inside American democracy.
the most important stories on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis?
You're going to hear a lot of reporting.
It is clearly a pivotal moment.
Gun control, the economy, education.
Both sides of the political aisle fight it out for power.
Bringing you the analysis that you need.
Thoughtfully, with context.
Be part of the conversation.
On CBS News Streaming.
Welcome to America Decides.
When people say who's first to get in the morning, that would be me. Morning news matters because it sets the tone for your day, and it's a way of getting you started.
Day to day, that first draft of history, it happens right here.
We're going to uplift you. We're going to send you out your way.
We take you places, we teach you new things, and we make you feel like, you know, it's not all bad.
People say to me, you always seem to be having a good time. And you know what? You're right.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
Welcome back to America Decides. 5 states are holding primary contests today. These are the first since former President Donald Trump was found guilty in his New York criminal case. Hunter Woodall joins us now. Hunter, it's always great to see you. So Senator Bob Menendez's corruption trial is looming over another race in New Jersey today, a personal one for him. Can you talk about what you're watching?
It's really interesting. The younger Menendez, this is Rob Menendez, he's currently a U.S. House member. He's running for re-election in Congress right now. He's a Democrat, but he's facing a robust primary challenge from the mayor of Hoboken. And this has turned into a bit of a headache for him. The mayor has actually out-fundraised him in this race. And obviously, you know, Rob Menendez is not his dad, but that name, you know, carries a lot of weight right now and obviously some repercussions given the criminal trial that Senator Menendez is facing right now.
And even though you just made this distinction, they are obviously two separate people, two completely different campaigns, two completely different chambers. Do you think it is having an impact at all at the ballot?
Well, it's also interesting because you look at the Senate race playing out as well, because currently, Democrats are trying to replace Senator Menendez in the Senate, and you have Congressman Andy Kim who's trying to win that race. He's managed to clear the Democratic field essentially. He's the front runner in that race. New Jersey is a Democratic state. Menendez himself has actually filed to run as an independent for the Senate, so he's not on the ballot today. But Senator Menendez obviously is trying to keep his seat, even as Democrats appear to be rallying behind Representative Kim.
And speaking of Senate races, I want to turn to the Senate primaries in Montana. I know that you're also tracking what's happening there, and what are you seeing so far? What's at stake here?
Montana is a fascinating state because it's a reliably Republican state, but it's currently one of the Senate seats is held by a Democrat. That's Senator Jon Tester. Tester is one of the most vulnerable Democrats, in the entire country right now in terms of, targets for Republicans this fall. Tester, he's served multiple terms. He's, well known in the Senate, but Republicans really want to oust him. The chief of the Senate Republican campaign arm is actually the fellow senator from Montana, Steve Daines. It looks like Republican Tim Sheehy, is trying to advance out of this primary today to face Tester in November, and that's going to be a tough race for Democrats as they look to maintain control of the Senate this fall.
And as you mentioned, Montana is a red state. So why do you think Tester has been able to keep this seat for so long? And what makes him vulnerable this time around?
You know, he has an interesting approach. You know, he very much leans into his Montana roots, his approach that, you know, tends to gel well with the state. But it's difficult because, you know, you can't really divorce some of these down ballot races from the top of the ticket. You're going to have, you know, likely Donald Trump and Joe Biden at the top of the ticket this fall. This, you know, this is not a state Joe Biden is likely to do very well in. That's a challenge for Tester. He'll have to outrun Biden and, you know, win over, you know, Trump voters if he wants to maintain his Senate seat.
It is a very fascinating race. Thank you so much, Hunter. Well, just yesterday, we saw Guy Rose, the son of Tennessee Congressman John Rose, going viral for making faces and sticking out his tongue while his dad delivered a speech on the House floor. Well, a reporter caught up with Guy today to ask about his newfound fame.
Guy, you ever get tired of being on TV?
No. Well, if only all of the answers on Capitol Hill could be so cut and dry, we could save a lot of time and trying to make sense. Thank you so much for watching us today. We will be back with another edition of America Decides tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Daily Report with John Dickerson starts right now.
Welcome to the Daily Report for June 4th, 2024. I'm John Dickerson. Presidents like to say they can't wave a magic wand and get quick action. But today, President Biden got close. Thousands of migrants claiming asylum who would have gotten a hearing